I've been gardening for more than 30 years, and I've been a certified master gardener since 2004. And I still make a lot of mistakes in the garden. There are a lot of failures in every growing season. Join me today as I try to answer the question, why is gardening so hard? Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and this is one of those questions that too many of us ask after we get into gardening, after we learn that it's harder than we thought it would be, because initially it looks so simple. You just take a seed or a plant and put it in the ground, add some water, expect the sun to do its job, and then you're going to go out and harvest or see those beautiful flowers. But so often it just doesn't work out as we plan. There are a lot of successes, and from those failures come successes. But why is it so hard when the basic concept is so simple? Many of you know that I was a career pilot in the United States Air Force. Long ago, I began my flying career by learning how to fly little airplanes, little Cessna propeller-driven airplanes. And then I went to pilot training, where I spent a year learning how to fly jets, little jets, two different jets, the T-37 and the T-38. One was slower, one was faster, but at the end, I got my pilot wings, and I was ready to start flying my airplane, the KC-135, the air refueling tanker. But I wasn't ready yet. I had to go to another school to learn how to fly the KC-135. And after many months and many hours of training, I was certified as a co-pilot. But I still wasn't ready. I had to go to my first base, and it was about 3 months before they were willing to put me with the crew and let me fly without a lot of extra guidance. But I still didn't know a lot. After a couple years as a co-pilot, I was then trained to become an aircraft commander, the one who would run the crew. But I still didn't know nearly as much as I needed to. So I got a lot of extra help, a lot of extra guidance, a lot of instructors that would fly with us often for additional training. And after another couple years of experience, I became an instructor pilot, and I was able to teach others at the base how to learn to fly the airplane. Well, I then advanced to the schoolhouse, and I actually became an instructor at the KC-135 school, teaching those brand new pilots how to fly. Eventually, I progressed and became a command pilot. I had 20 years of flying. Well, that seems like a natural progression. But what if on that very first day where I show up, the Air Force says, hey, jump in that airplane and go fly a mission and good luck with it? Well, that's how too many of us approach gardening. We don't think about all of the years that it takes to reach a point where we can have continual success. We don't think about those little pieces along the way that we need to know before we can move to the next stage. At any point in my Air Force career, if I had missed one of those critical training points, well, I wouldn't have been a successful pilot. In fact, I might have been a dangerous pilot. I ended my career at the U.S. Air Force Academy, taking the Air Force Academy cadets into the airplanes for their very first flights and teaching them how to fly the gliders that they were going to solo on in just a few flights. All of those preliminary training points and experience points for me in the Air Force led me to that point where I could tell these young cadets how to fly. And that's where I'm at now, is telling new gardeners and experienced gardeners how to maybe make gardening a little more successful. It begins at the very start with the seed. You have to plant some seeds. You have to have some successes and failures before you understand how the seed grows into the plant. And then you have to understand the plant, all of the requirements for that plant, the light, the water, the soil, the nutrients. You can delve even deeper into each of those. How much light do the plants need? How much water do the plants need? What kind of soil pH is best for those plants? You can see that gardening actually has level upon level of information that we all need to become successful. And then beyond the plant, if you start looking at the harvest, well, when is the fruit ready to harvest? When is that root ready to pull? And does the plant need additional nutrients? Is there another plant growing next to it that might benefit it? Or is it going to be crowded out, shaded by that other plant? Is there a plant that won't grow in my garden, but I see it growing in someone else's garden? That's a too common mistake, where we try to grow things that just aren't going to grow in our individual gardens because we rely so much on the information of others. So now we have to look at what varieties we should be growing in the types of gardens that we want to grow. It's the same kind of journey. You build upon the information that you've already attained, the experience that you already have in the garden. And then when you find a variety that you like, well, now you can branch out and try something different, a new variety, or a completely new type of plant that maybe doesn't do as well in your area, but you can begin to experiment with it and grow a plant that will have success because you know how to make it successful. And eventually you start sharing your experiences with the gardening network that you develop. You start sharing your stories with your friends. You become an instructor gardener because you start sharing those experiences and that knowledge with someone who doesn't know as much. I think ideally it's the youth. It's either volunteering at a school garden or at the very least teaching your own children and grandchildren how to garden so that they can start this path early and begin to learn all of these lessons that ultimately takes years to learn. After 30 years, the mistakes I make are sometimes so simplistic that you wouldn't believe it. And I share a lot of the mistakes I make on the videos. But I do have a lot of successes because I build upon the learning from those mistakes. So if you're a new gardener, don't think that you're going to have absolute, complete, and total success in every aspect of your garden in your first attempt, or your second attempt, or your third attempt, or in your 30th attempt. Things are going to go wrong along the way. You just have to keep moving forward, keep learning, keep trying, and keep sticking with the gardening journey. Why is gardening so hard? Well, it's because there are a lot of aspects involved with gardening. You have botany, you have chemistry, you have climatology. All of these are factors that affect the way that plants grow. And if you don't understand that a plant is a complex living organism, then you're already starting behind the 8 ball. Recognize that plants are complex and that soil is complex and that weather is complex. And just your abilities to get outside might be limited from a time perspective, or because you might not be physically as able to do everything you want to do in your garden. There are a lot of limitations, but the reason we continue to do this and why gardening is so wonderful is because of the upside. There are so many benefits and so many rewards when we can take that seed that we didn't know anything about and eventually, over time, with that success, harvest that wonderful fruit. And then you learn how to save the seed from that fruit so you can grow your own seeds and plants all over again. and it just keeps expanding, and the information keeps growing. And maybe you'll get to the point like me where you'll be making videos or teaching classes and sharing that knowledge to a lot of new gardeners around the world. That's what I encourage you to do at some point. And that's where I hope you will eventually get, by reaching the point that you are comfortable with your gardening. Recognize it might take a long time. It might take years, but you're not going to be able to walk out to your garden on that first day and really see the successes that you anticipate and hope for without the journey along the way, without all of those things that are going to happen. And the journey is wonderful. That's why I've been gardening for so long, and why I continue to garden even when I know things are going to go wrong. It's for those successes. It's for those stories, and it's for the teaching. Gardening is hard because it is, but we can break it down into some simple components that we learn one piece at a time, have fun with it, and then become successful gardeners. If you benefited from this video, or you know a gardener who might benefit from this video, give it a thumbs up and share it. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.